Hi, I'm Mark and I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer. In this two-part video series we're going to take a look at MIDI polyphonic expression, or MPE, which is now available in Ableton Live 11. In this first video we will take a closer look at how MPE works, try out some of the new MPE enabled instruments and effects in Live 11, as well as the new MPE editor. We will also cover how to use Ableton Push to play and record polyphonic pad pressure, making use of some of the new MPE features. Let's first take a look at what MPE is and how it works. MPE allows us to control multiple sound parameters for each note being played simultaneously, and this can make instruments more expressive and the sound design process generally more creative. There are multiple hardware MPE controllers available now, which allow us to play and record MPE control data, and we'll take a look at some of these in the second video in this series. Let's take the example of playing a chord. If using standard MIDI, each held note is transmitted from our keyboard to the instrument via a single MIDI channel. And this works fine for the individual notes and their velocities, all of which can be recognized and recorded as separate data which we can edit later if needed. But if we were to use the pitch bend wheel on the keyboard, any movements from this will be applied to all of the notes, and the same goes for modulation and so on. So you could think of pitch bend and modulation as global controls. MPE, on the other hand, allows each note to have its own dedicated MIDI channel, up to 15. This now means that any pitch bend, pressure or slide applied affects only that note. So each note can be independent from the rest and have its own unique tone and characteristic. This does require an MPE-enabled instrument, of course. With MPE, we can achieve a similar articulation that you would expect with acoustic instruments, but with electronic sounds. There are some MPE-enabled devices in Live 11, including Wavetable, Sampler, and the Arpeggiator MIDI effect. And there's also support for Max for Live devices and third-party MPE-compatible VST plugins. Let's take a look at how Ableton Push can be used to play and record polyphonic pad pressure. Although Push is not a full MPE-enabled controller, it does have the option to turn on polyphonic pad pressure, or aftertouch. This means that if we are using pad pressure to control the filter of a synth, for example, each note being triggered by a pad will have its own unique filter response, allowing us to vary the tonal characteristics of each note being played. The first thing you'll need to do is enable poly pressure mode. Press the setup button on push 2 or hold down the user button on push 1 and change the pressure option from mono to poly. Now we need to go to Live's preferences and click on the Link Tempo MIDI tab and turn on MPE for Push. This essentially tells Live to accept polyphonic control data from the control surface. We can now use polyphonic pad pressure with Push. A great way to get a feel for working with polyphonic control is to use some of the new presets in Live 11. Head over to the Sounds category in the browser and expand the MPE Sounds section. These presets already have MPE modulation mapping assigned to various parameters. Notice the change in the sound as more pressure is applied to each pad. Let's create our own sound that uses polyphonic pad pressure from Push to control the instrument. For this example, we will load up Wavetable. I'm just going to adjust the Wavetable position to get a brighter sound. And now we'll set up the filter. I'm going to keep it on low pass but increase the resonance a little to make any filter sweeps more noticeable. And I'm going to set the filter cutoff frequency to halfway. Now, if we head over to the routing matrix, we can see there's a new section dedicated to MPE. This allows us to route MPE control data such as pressure or pitch bend to different parameters of the synthesizer such as filter cutoff or oscillator pitch. As I apply more pressure to a pad on push, we can see an indication of this on the pressure column. Now I will set this pressure as a modulation source to the filter cutoff frequency by clicking and dragging in the corresponding section. Now if I play a couple of notes and apply more pressure to the lowest note, we can hear its filter opening up to reveal more of the higher frequencies, but the higher note remains unchanged. And now reducing this but applying more pressure to the higher note reveals more high frequencies for that note also. When we record a MIDI clip, this pad pressure will also be recorded along with our note data. Let's give this a go. Let's play this clip back. As you can hear, the alternating pad pressure has been recorded and is playing back exactly as it was played. Ableton Live 11 introduces a simple but extremely powerful MPE editor, which can be found in the New Expression tab in a MIDI clip. It's possible here to edit 5 expression dimensions for each individual note, including pitch bend, pressure, slide, velocity and release velocity. Here we can see the notes that have been recorded, and further down we can reveal the additional polyphonic expression lanes. Let's focus on the pressure option. We can now see the pressure data that has also been recorded for each note. Selecting a note above makes its expression available for editing below. Editing recorded data and creating new control shapes works in a similar way to automation in Live, in that we can click and drag breakpoints to alter the shape of modulation. We can drag across to replace multiple breakpoints, and by holding Alt on Windows or Command on a Mac, you can snap breakpoints to the grid in the background. This makes precise editing relatively easy. Holding Alt near a line allows us to apply curves to the expression shape. Using the Draw tool, it's easy to sketch in new expression shapes, which are applied only to the note currently selected. It's not essential to have an MPE controller to create and edit polyphonic expression. We can use the MPE editor to create interesting patterns for pitch bend, slide and pressure without any MPE control surface needed. Let's take a look at these chords. We can use the New Expression editor to apply some sound design techniques to the recorded chords. Let's apply some polyphonic pitch bend to our recorded notes. So for these two notes, rather than having one drop down to the other, I'm just going to have one note and I'm going to bend its pitch down and get rid of this note here. If we zoom in a little, we have the option to draw in per note pitch bend, and we can edit this by clicking on the breakpoints and dragging them to the desired position. Notice that it indicated a numerical value in semitones, so we know how much pitch bend is being applied. We can snap this to semitones also by holding the Command key on a Mac or Alt on Windows. Let's apply pitch bend to some of the other notes. This is a really intuitive way of working with per note pitch bend, as we can easily bend a note up or down to another note and ensure that it's perfectly aligned with the piano roll. We can also draw in some slide or pressure control for each note recorded. Let's first of all go back to Wavetable and apply MPE slide to a parameter. I already have pressure controlling the filter and some other parameters. I'm going to add slide to the Wavetable position so that an increase in slide scans through different waveforms. Back in the Expression tab for this clip, we can show the slide lane at the bottom, so now we can see both slide and pressure expression lanes together. As before, we can select a note and then draw in some slide control shapes. This essentially simulates incoming MPE slide to control our instrument. Let's focus on the pressure lane first, which is controlling the filter. And now let's draw in some shapes for the slide expression lane, which is controlling the wavetable position. Live's arpeggiator MIDI device has also been updated to be MPE compatible. If we play the clip containing the chords through the arpeggiator, the MPE control data still affects the mapped MPE parameters on the synthesizer, even when a note is not technically playing. MPE adds a deeper level of precision to sound design and sound editing, whether playing or recording via a dedicated MPE controller or drawing in expression shapes directly into a MIDI clip using the new Expression tab. The scope for what is possible from a single instrument is now much wider. In the next video, we'll take a closer look at dedicated MPE controllers and how MPE can be utilized through Max for Live.